Hi, I'm Rory Lewis, and I'm a macro photographer from Swindon, and this is in the hall with Jamie Field. Don't do no blooper reel or anything. Hi, I'm Rory Lewis. I'm a macro photographer from Swindon, and this is in the field with Jamie Hall.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of In the Field. Firstly, I just want to thank everyone for their support. Your likes, comments, shares, subscribes, all that sort of stuff was truly amazing. Thank you so much. It really couldn't have gone down better than I'd ever hoped, and for that reason I was really keen to get in as many episodes as possible. Unfortunately, I was starting to feel like this project was maybe cursed because the next 2 episodes ended up falling through last minute, while on location for things like weather and travel. These episodes were hopefully going to look at different areas of photography. So these 2 planned episodes were looking at long lens stuff, birds, mammals and all that sort of stuff. With those unfortunately falling by the wayside, I wanted to look at something a bit close to home. Thankfully, not too far away from me is Rory Lewis, an amazing and passionate macro photographer who was really keen to spend the day with me. Unfortunately, the weather on this day was also a bit poor, so we spent the first hour or so sat under a tree waiting for the rain to pass, but eventually it did, and we had a really good day, saw some great macro and talked about all things photography. The original idea of this project was also just to showcase amazing work by these incredible photographers, and watching Rory's images on the big screen over the last couple of days really has just had a whole different impact. Social media is a great tool for sharing our love for photography and wildlife, but viewing these images on a tiny screen just isn't the same. So I fully recommend that you get your laptop out or stick this on the big TV so you can really get that impact, the detail and those colours from these great photographers. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the episode. That's it, never going to be good again. Alright, welcome to episode 2. I'm joined by macro legend Rory Lewis. First thing we're going to do is talk about gear, much like the last one. What have you got today, Rory?
So I'm carrying the Canon EOS 90D with the Godox V860 flash, Laowa 100mm macro, and there's a Raynox 250 on there. I've also got the Cygnus Tech diffuser, much like you, Jamie. Yeah,
and this is the new one. So the last episode I had a thicker one, and this is a newer, thinner one, so you get a bit more economy on your light, which you found pretty good, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, since the thinner style was introduced, I've sort of stuck with it the whole time, really. For me personally, I just find it gives me a little bit more control over the amount of light that I can throw down. So yeah, really pleased with it.
You've also got a hand strap, which I'm pretty tempted to try and get for myself. You were saying last time we met that was pretty handy as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for this, the small sort of cost that it is, I mean, I do a lot of one-handed shooting. I'm sure like a lot of people do with macro. So, where you're like holding leaves and stuff like that to try and sort of position your shot. And I just found like with my reed-like wrists, I was getting quite tired at the end of the day, and and for stacking as well, actually just helps that little bit with stability when you're sort of stacking handheld, which I do all the time. So yeah, that's actually been pretty useful.
So I normally shoot on the full frame, the Canon, so because Rory has the smaller cropped frame, he'll get a bit more magnification, and the same with the Laowa lens, you're getting more magnification off that as well. So
he's going to be able to get a lot closer to his subjects, and that's why probably most of your stuff is quite tight portraits, really. I was having a little flick through your Instagram yesterday, and there's a lot of really good close-up detail stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a natural sort of progression on that, because I think without even thinking about it, as time's gone on, I sort of did shoot more scene-like stuff, and just over time I just found myself getting gradually closer and closer and closer to the insects all the time. And it sort of became insect portraiture eventually, you know, and that's kind of, I guess, the bit I enjoy creating the most, you know, and that's the frame I always go for. So of course with a crop sensor, yeah, you're just that little bit closer, a little bit less to crop away. So that's kind of why I've sort of stuck with it. I mean, I have tried the full frame for macro, and there's a lot of benefits to full frame as well, of course. You know, the dynamics and everything of it are just far better reproduced. But I'll be sticking with the crop for a little bit.
No, that's cool. And I also noticed last time we met that Rory set up his diffuser very differently. So you've got it really, really like over the top, quite far back.
Yeah, I mean,
tight.
yeah, that's a comfort thing mainly, because when you know, for a long time I was sort of creating my own diffusers, and that was always the kind of angle that I would angle them at, and it gives quite a flat appearance of lighting. It's not necessarily the most natural looking thing in the world, but it's kind of, because that's just the only way I knew how to make diffusers, that kind of became my, you know, my look, I guess, for my photography. So one of the first things I did when I received the Cygnus Tech diffuser was just kind of change it a little bit to try and stick with that same kind of appearance, and it's actually worked quite well for that. And also with this the Lauer with the Raynox as well, sort of you get quite close. I mean, maximum magnification on that is probably about 3.5 to 1.
Yeah.
So I find that it helps a little bit to have this angle down a little bit as well, because you know you're going to be sort of right underneath it for a lot of your shots. So yeah, that's why it's gone that way.
Yeah, it's kind of great. Such like really similar setups, tiny minor differences can really make a huge difference. I do need to try out the hand grip as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we're here hopefully looking for some pollinators. It's a bit late in the season, so we'll see what we can find. Let's go for a little walk. And show me how you get a wasp, because I can never get a wasp.
Watch for the ones that are preening. That's why the ivy's better, but maybe we'll pass on the way back and see if it's a bit more populated. But they tend to get a bit messy when they're in the ivy, and they stop to sort of preen themselves. Right. And that's when I tend to shoot them then. You can get them with the jaws wide open and stuff like that as well.
Do you know what I have got a couple of shots of wasps, and they've got this like really furry thing in between the two jaws.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, so if you look, I don't know, I mean, it's got like sticky hairs in it, I think. That's like their proboscis that they...
Right, okay.
So if you just look like what a fly has, and you imagine that the wasp has just got like a sheet of armour over the front of that, but the actual biology underneath is very similar to just, like a Diptera's kind of mouthpiece.
It looks super weird. I haven't really got any great shots of it, but I have got sort of just that singled out, and it looks mad, like these sort of additional...
Yeah, it's quite like heavily barbed.
Yeah,
if you watch it when they're sort of stripping the wood, they'll sort of attack it with the mandibles, but then that tongue thing, if you want to call it that, it sort of licks at the shards, of wood that come, the flakes of wood that come off. So I'm guessing that's why it's so barbed, so because it all helps with this sort of wood stripping process, I guess.
Awesome. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the use of different backgrounds, something that Rory does quite a lot. So tell us what sort of methods you use, Rory.
Sure. Well, I mean, I've tried lots of different methods in the past in terms of, giving brighter coloured backgrounds. One thing I've sort of settled on nowadays is I tend to use microfiber cloths. Beauty of those, of course, is that you can keep your lens clean at the same time, or dry even. And I tend to carry quite a few different colours around with me, just to try and get the right mood. I mean, we've got just here, if you can see that there, look, Jamie, there's a little harlequin ladybird just nestled in there. Now, to be fair, I mean, in certain circumstances, I'd probably be quite happy with the green in the background there. But you know, if you obviously want something a bit different and just to zhuzh your shots up a little bit, one of the nice things about using these cloths, of course, is that you can, you know, change them to any size. You only need a small area anyway. You know, if you're shooting something high up, you can just hang it off a twig in the background or anything like that. And even if you can't quite get it in the position you want it to be in, if you've got something fairly still like this, you know, you could always just, you know, move it around a tad. So you can see there, I've just sort of shoved it down into the undergrowth. And I normally tend to end up shooting from above with stuff like this.
Right, okay. And the good thing is these are non-reflective, hey? I imagine
that's right, yeah, they absorb the light quite
well.
nicely, yeah, that's exactly it.
So this is a fairly common technique in macro. One great thing right now, if we've got some examples, we've obviously got autumn, so we've got some really nice little oranges and different things that you can use. I often take things like berries, anything with a bit of colour. I've always got something in my pocket that I can stick behind the subject to make it a bit more interesting, because sometimes the greens can't be that nice, or sometimes it is a bit black, and it will definitely add loads of colour to your shots, and that's something that I think you do really well.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Right, got a couple of quick fire questions for you, Rory.
Okay.
Favourite subject?
Oh, I hate that question. I think probably wasps are my favourite. I feel like I've got a bit of an affinity with them.
Yeah, not damsels. You do a lot of damsels.
Yeah, I think probably a few people watching this might be expecting me to say damsel because I shoot so many of them. Yeah, no, it's something about wasps. I think maybe it's their reputation, you know, the way they're so maligned, and I think they're pretty punk rock. So
nice. All right. Next question. Favourite image of your own?
Oh wow, that probably actually is one of my damsel images. I think I managed to take quite a few of a particular common blue on a pink flower.
Nice.
With pink flowers in the background, and it was just the colours and everything of it. And every time I look at it, I'm just really, really pleased with it.
Okay, favourite animal that isn't an invert?
Oh, I only like inverts.
No, don't give me that.
Wow, blimey. I don't know. It'd probably have to be some kind of raptor, I would imagine, some kind of bird.
Nice. Favourite place in the UK to shoot?
I mean, to be honest, you know, living in Wiltshire, I tend to shoot all the time in Wiltshire, but every now and again I will head back into Gloucestershire because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And that's where I first started to take macro photography, so it's got a lot of special meaning for me. And there's just, I don't know, maybe Forest of Dean, Cannock Ponds,
nice.
that kind of area, stunning around there.
Okay, anything that you want to shoot that you haven't found yet?
Oh yeah, there's a huge list.
Just the top one. What's your absolute top?
In this country, I would absolutely love to find and shoot a pseudoscorpion.
Nice. The really small ones, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen a couple of guys doing those. Anything not in this country?
Spiders. I think, like, you know, although we do have some fantastic species in the UK, you know, some of the wolf spiders and stuff that you see in places like, you know, Central America and you know, oh, they just look incredible. So yeah, just any type of spiders that you get around the world that aren't in the UK would be a great treat.
What's the hardest thing that you've ever shot? What do you find that's hardest to shoot?
The most challenging, I think, generally, unless you can find one that's just sort of sat there in the cold, for me have been dragonfly. I come here to shoot them. You do get quite a lot of them here, and I do tend to find one that I tend to stick with, and I end up following it from branch to branch, tree to tree. I followed one time and cornered it, and I was just getting into focus, and a robin flew down and ate it, and I almost got it in shot.
All right, last one. Have you got a favourite photographer? Can be on Instagram or professional. That sort of
apart
is
from you,
inspiring.
Jamie.
Apart from me, can't choose me.
Oh man.
Name a couple. I don't want you to have favouritism.
Oh, okay.
Inspiration to
I'm a massive fan of Brendan's work, who you know, is obviously behind these wonderful diffusers.
Shout out to Brendan.
Luke, of course, who you had on here previously.
Yeah.
He's been a huge inspiration for me at the start, and for many other budding macro photographers, I'm sure. And Dennis.
Yeah, we were just talking about
Yeah, I
Dennis.
love Dennis's stuff, and he's such a fun guy as well.
Yeah, absolute legend. Every single one of his shots is ridiculous as well.
Yeah, he's incredibly talented. He's one of those photographers that I really look at and I'm like, how did you do that? I've even asked him, but he's so nonchalant about it, you get nothing from him.
So we're at Barbary Castle, a place that Rory told me about last time we were here, and it's got this sort of like divot trench here, which kind of gives it a bit of a microclimate. It's nice and warm, so we've got loads of high concentration of bugs here. We've only been here a couple of minutes and found an absolute beauty of a spider, a 4-spot Orbweaver. What did you say the scientific name was?
Luke Chambers may be watching this and he'll probably kill me if I get it wrong, but I believe it's Araneus quadrimetus.
Sounds about right. The quad sounds good.
Yeah.
And they're really beautiful, quite often confused or mistaken for the garden spider, which I think you said was his cousin.
Yeah, they're pretty closely related, but not to you know, be derogatory to the garden spider in any way. They're just a little bit more common, beautiful as they are. What's special about these is that they, apart from the markings on them is so gorgeous, they tend to come in quite a variety of different colours, from a sort of a little less assuming beige to yellow to this beautiful bright orange one that we've got here, all the way up to a really vivid bright red.
Yeah, I saw someone post one the other day actually, which was really bright red. I actually thought it was a strawberry striped spider at first.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're absolutely beautiful subjects.
Yeah, stunning.
They're quite a lot. Even the garden spider varies quite a lot in their markings. They can be really sort of light and grey to kind of orangey colour as well.
Yeah, you're right. And they say about the garden spider, the markings that they have on them, no two of them on Earth has ever been the same.
Like a fingerprint.
Yeah, like a fingerprint. I think that's pretty cool.
A pretty good subject for some background stuff, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another little cool thing, Rory, what we got?
We got what looks like a female Roseow's bush cricket here. Again, another quite common insect that you tend to find up here. This one seems to be smallish compared to some of the sizes they can grow to. This can be a particularly large cricket. You walk through the long grass a bit further up when it's in the summer, and you could just literally feel them jumping on you. There it goes.
They're notoriously hard to shoot. I always struggle with any kind of crickets. Spend about 10 minutes getting any kind of close to them before I can get a shot off. They're very jumpy.
Yeah, and it's the shape as well, isn't it? Because they're that sort of like almost sort of cylindrical shape. It's quite a difficult thing to get in frame or even get a decent amount of depth on.
Yeah, I think composure is quite hard with them as well. I think it can be really nice if you get head on, but they're a bit of a weird sort of shape. And it's a very long thing to try and get a good stack of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last time I saw you were talking about sort of like letting your garden go a bit wild, which I think was really cool and everyone should be doing a bit more of. Tell us what went on there.
Yeah, I mean, what probably started off as a bit of lack of motivation on my part, certainly that's what my other half would say anyway. I let the back lawn sort of grow out through much of the spring and early part of the summer, and it was amazing how quickly the sort of the wildlife turned up and the diversity. It started off as just a sort of a few crane flies, and maybe then the frogs sort of moved in, and then once the grass got above about knee height, that's when the damselflies turned up, which was a massive surprise to me. I didn't expect to see those, and the beauty of that was that I could roll out of bed at 5 in the morning, go out into the garden and get a dew-covered damselfly shot in my own backyard, which was a dream come true, really. And then the cherry on the cake for it all was sort of towards the end of that period. I had a fence post jumping spider turn up there.
Morpissa muscosa.
Yeah.
Chambers got that one right.
Which is a spider which is virtually unseen, completely unseen in this region. In fact, I had to record the sighting and everything, and
That's
that was
awesome.
Yeah, and that was in my own back garden. And I suppose it begs the question really of how much of an impact this this urban hygiene, if you like, has on the available species that are to us, and certainly like to do it again next year, and I'd definitely encourage anyone else to do the same.
Yeah, I think there's was it No Mo May or No Mo? What's that initiative?
Yeah, say no to the mow, isn't it? Is that
Something
what it is?
like that. And quite a lot of people had really wild lawns for at least a month, and definitely, like I think in the village where I live, it was all not mowed for a month, and there was loads more insect life and stuff for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good idea. I think there's a lot to be said for sort of rewilding in some way or another. I know another guy who just put in a pond in his house, and within like a few weeks he had tadpoles and toads and birds and all sorts of stuff turning up.
Yeah, I mean, and it can, if you're in the right hands, I guess it can look extremely beautiful as well. I mean, I'm not much of a gardener, to say the least, but it certainly inspired me to think about it more, and maybe create a wild space that is not just a rough patch of land, but is actually quite beautiful as well, so you can have the best of both worlds.
100%, mate. All up for that. Alright, another challenging day for the episode. Bit of rain, not ideal weather, but still found some really good macro late in the season. Not too bad, eh, Rory?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Really appreciate you showing me these great places again. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for having
Always
me along.
fun. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, and tune in for the next episode next time. Cheers.